We believe we're living in the last days before the coming of Christ. Since we're living in those days, we ought to be able to identify things from the Bible that are trends out in the world. And that's why we focus on Bible prophecy each week for about 5 minutes. We try not to be sensational. Hopefully you don't think this is anything like that. We don't see prophecy in every earthquake or moon phase. We reference our comments with news sources that have been published. We also try to be careful to point out that we're not claiming that these trends are necessarily the fulfillment of prophecy. They're just things that seem to resonate with the Bible's yet unfulfilled prophecies, things that you would expect from reading the Bible. If you were reading the Bible in the 40s, for example, you would expect that Israel would become a nation again. And lo and behold, they did. So that was the fulfillment of a prophecy. And so that's kind of what we're doing. The yet future 7-year Great Tribulation is predicted in the Old Testament many times, and it's described in detail in the book of the Revelation from chapter 6 through 19. It's going to feature totalitarian control over citizens using some form of mark on them that sounds a great deal like biometrics. And so we look at biometrics to see how that's trending. I read an article titled, Guyana to launch biometric national ID card, Portugal and Jamaica, digital ID plans advance. So let me read some excerpts from the article. Guyana's government is planning to include biometrics among the security features of a new national ID card for use with all public services. Options for a new national ID card are being considered ahead of its introduction to replace multiple different forms of ID currently used for services such as pensions, tax payments, Social Security, immigration status, and admission to schools. The new credential is part of a broader civil registration reform. The establishment of the Department of Citizenship was intended to protect the rights of citizens. Our citizenship policy is to ensure that every Guyanese citizen will be accounted for from birth to death as far as technologically possible, their president stated at a recent event. So nothing could go wrong with that, right? The government tracking you from birth to death with one card. The article also mentioned that the government of Portugal is planning to launch a biometric facial recognition and liveness-backed digital ID for access to government websites. A digital Jamaica is coming soon. Jamaica's Ministry of Science, Energy, and Technology has developed an 8-point plan to build out the country's digital services. They say the average wait time to visit a government office right now is 4.3 hours. So if you have business with the government, you have to wait 4 1/3 hours. This service is going to be far more efficient, they say. I'm sure that's true. And that's expected to be completed in the next 7 to 8 months. So everybody's moving in this direction. Has everybody gotten their real ID, their California real ID? So, true story, I went to get mine, and they changed my name. I couldn't prove that I was Gene Joseph Pensiero. I can only prove that I'm Gene Pensiero, because my birth certificate doesn't have my middle name. And so they just told me, it's casual as day, that you are now known as Gene Pensiero. Gene Joseph Pensiero doesn't exist. So I haven't paid any of my lenders in months ever since. No, it doesn't really work that way, but it was kind of weird. I mean, I got over in about 10 seconds, but it's kind of weird that the government just said, this is who you are now. And I thought, okay, what's next? Then I put the microchip in and everything was fine. So anyway, no one is suggesting this is the mark, but since there will be a mark in the future, and there will be totalitarian control, these are the things you'd expect to be happening in the last days before the return of Christ. Now, the Lord promised he'd return to rapture the church, and as I tell you each week, that means he'll resurrect the dead in Christ from the church age, and then living believers will be translated and caught up to be together with them and the Lord forever. That's the rapture. It includes the resurrection of the saints. And it's imminent. It could happen at any time. Jesus knew it was imminent. The apostles taught that, and we believe that. Are you ready for the rapture? If not, get ready and stay ready and keep looking up, because ready or not, Jesus is coming.